I tend to just start rolling this and make sure everything's going. And then, we'll do it. It's a very natural thing.
Mm-hmm.
Podcasting, talking to people, microphones, internet, the world, connection. This is what society is like now. This is like the only way I even get to hang out with people anymore is by doing this. If I didn't do this, I would probably never see anybody.
It's a great way of meeting people too. Like I remember the podcast almost like doubled as like a way, cause you do the show swap thing.
Yeah.
Like you'll bring in a band, you'll host them here. And it was like almost our like little way of getting to know bands that were coming to town. Cause we would just hit them up and they're happy for anything that's like this,
Absolutely.
They have some representation in a different city. And that was always a good tool for us. That's how, honestly, like a lot of the reason why we ended up like keeping on with it,
Mm-hmm.
So
let's pull this just a little bit closer to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You don't got to be all up on it, but it was like up at your nose.
Okay.
So I think we can do it. Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of the people who listened to that conversation, I hope you enjoyed it and thanks so much for coming back. But for those of you who are new to the show, welcome. Please feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda and water in the fridge. Cheers. I don't know where your water's at.
It's not on the
Dylan
table.
has a water somewhere. He didn't keep it on the table. That's totally fine. It's all good. Sitting here today with 2/100ths of the band string machine.
yeah.
How many people are in your band? 7, right?
Yeah, 7.
2/7 of string machine. David and Dylan, say what's up to the internet.
Hello, internet.
What's up?
It's nice to see the internet.
Yeah, the internet is happy to see you.
Yeah.
We are here today to talk about music, the local scene, an album that you just put out, or you're about to put out, August 2nd.
Yeah, August 2nd. Yeah.
Today, this will be uploading on July 29th. So,
Oh, man.
so coming very, very soon, August 2nd.
Yeah.
You can listen to Death of the Neon, which did you wear this t-shirt as an ironic gesture?
Well, no, actually, funny thing about it is like I named the album Death of the Neon because we thought it was like a interesting, like, you could read that so many different ways, but it is to me, it just means the death. I used to drive a Dodge Neon, so it's kind of, to me, it was a car that meant a lot to me, and it got put to the scrapyard.
Did the car have a name?
Yeah, my dad did have a name. It was Lulu.
Lulu the Neon. Rest
Yeah.
in peace.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
funny, and it was actually just the car that I would like borrow from my dad when my Jeep was not doing too good, but it gave me a lot of strife. And I actually, the strife sometimes was a lot to handle.
I mean, that's having a car in general, or having anything of monetary value
exactly.
as an artist is just nothing but stress.
Oh, there was one time where the radiator had like a leak in it. So like through September and like October, I was just like, okay, we'll deal with it later, but I'll just keep pouring water in it and it would all leak out, but there was one night in November where we like played a show and I'm driving home and it starts overheating because that night in November, it got below 32.
Oh no.
Yeah, froze up the coolant lines and I was stranded and my phone died and yeah, I just had to deal with it,
But here you are. You made it.
Exactly.
We're really happy that you're here.
Yeah.
Everyone's really happy that you made it.
Yeah, you get through it,
So I was listening through Death of the Neon earlier today, and I had mentioned to you before we started recording that, this just sounded like a really meticulously well-produced project. I mean, you are a 7-piece band, so there's a lot of different instruments and things in the band. But to my understanding, you are kind of like this is like your brain, and then everything kind of gets dispersed onto other people.
Yeah, well, the project did start as like a solo project, and then we call ourselves like the Earthwalk Collective, and it's just a collective of artists that we're all just friends, Yeah. And on that first album we released like in 2016, it was just me like having people come in and like add parts that I thought would sound cool. And then it kind of just like formed into a band with, this guy and the other 5 members. And we were just like, well, let's just be a band then, And it's kind of cool how things can start that way.
So yeah, David, what has it been like, just trying to orchestrate all of that over these past few years? 'Cause I feel like it's probably a similar thing that I went through when I went from making Sykes and then starting to get a band and then put that together. I feel like we probably have a very similar story.
Yeah. It just was like, it's just a lot of working with these guys, like, I mean, I write the songs, and then generally, they just sit there, and then we, one by one, we kind of have to like be strategic about who plays what, where, and not making, because everyone's instinct is to write like a melody, but it's also important that there aren't too many like counter melodies happening. So it's like, sometimes you just
don't do anything for a little bit.
Exactly. And sometimes it is hard, like saying like, hey, I know you have a part written, but it might not be necessary here, you know? And when you build it up, you just kind of like, these guys are great collaborators because they're able to like unplug from their input and just hear the song for what it is and know and be like self-aware when they're like supposed, when the song needs them and when it doesn't. So
there's nothing that has made me like understand that process more than playing in heavy metal bands.
Yeah.
Because it's such natural instinct when writing metal music to go, it falls to the wall 1000 all the time. Yeah. But a lot of the time you don't need to, you have to understand that there is, you might have a real sick guitar riff, but it's not going to work if there's also somebody trying to play drums on top of it, then bass and vocals and whatever other stuff you put in. It could become a mess really, really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of time was just spent even just listening, tracking it was just like, you throw your parts on there, but like the majority of like crafting it is just listening to it over and over again and almost having to like learning how to like know the difference between like self-criticism and like too harsh of self-criticism and like you know what I mean.
Sure,
and like
sure.
So
it's like your child in a way.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You have to like tell yourself that your kid's ugly or like your kid's outfit sucks, so you gotta like fix it up.
Yeah, and there was a lot of parts where we would just go like balls to the wall with making it super dense and all the instrumentation there and then like peeling it away. What I mean? So it was like everyone just add what you want to add and then we'll go through and like mute what we don't think needs to be there. Mm-hmm. And if it sounds good through a listen through, that's the orchestration.
When you're writing these songs, I imagine you're doing like a good handful of pre-production while writing, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Was that what you were doing? Like, were you demoing stuff out?
So like how it starts with me is I just kind of like shoot some lyrics down because lyrics are a big part of my input. That's something I'm really like passionate about is the lyrics of it. And then, I just kind of, a lot of the process was demoing and simultaneously like recording, you know what I mean? Like it was a studio written album, but like we self-produced it in our bassist basement,
mm-hmm.
And, you'd lay down the first quarter of a song and be like, well, okay, let's, it was honestly just like work ethic. Like I'd be there by myself and just be like, okay, let's finish the song so they can hear it and hear the vision I was going with and then add on top. And, it worked out really good,
I don't think there's any way to put together an album like Death of the Neon other than it being almost like a studio written album, mm-hmm. because of all of the layers and how just detailed everything seems to be. I don't think that that's something that you can really just craft organically, like in a practice space with no recording whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like there's no way the Beach Boys would have put together Pet Sounds if they just were in a room, or the Beatles and the White Album, or whatever, crazy, dense, classic album you want to think of. Dark Side of the Moon, you can keep naming them. You know, like those are all studio written albums as well. Mm-hmm. And now that we live in a time where the access to technology is so easy to come across. I mean, most people have computers nowadays. Most people have computers in their fucking pockets.
Yeah.
You could record a demo a fucking album on your phone if you get the right dongle for the thing, you know what I mean? Like you can make it happen. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see so many bands taking advantage of that and then using it to put out really, really great product.
Yeah, I mean, you're limitless. You know what I mean? When you have when you have Logic, and sometimes you're too limitless. Like
that could be a problem too. Yeah.
I'll never forget the time. Well, we like recorded ourselves, but we got like Jake Hanner. I don't know if you know him.
I'm not familiar.
He's the drummer of Denora. That's from Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah, I know that. I know who they are, but I don't know them.
Yeah, exactly. And he has a studio where he was the most accommodating like engineer. I'd recommend him to any musician like making any kind of music. But I'll never forget the first song I sent him, you know, and it was 93 tracks worth of wave files. And he's just like I can mix, like, and I really appreciate him for this, because some engineers would just be like, okay, I'm mixing it, and then invoice you for like 10 hours, and you're like, that's our whole album budget, you know, or whatever. And,
totally.
But he was really cool and was just like, I mean, I can mix this for you, but like if you have like mixes that you're proud of, you can kind of like bounce certain things down. You know what I mean? Like the acoustic guitar can just be summed up into one track, and I can mix that, which, you know, it's all, you know, the limitations.
It's all a learning process too.
Yeah. And that's what I love about it, is like every project we do, it seems to be like a step forward for like our own like self reliance with the whole thing in general, for like how well we can do it. So.
Yeah. And along with this album that is coming out, you have a cool music video I want to touch base on that just premiered recently on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. So people can watch this. Mm-hmm. The song, I didn't write this down. 8-Legged Dog. Yeah. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good memory.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So for that track and that video, it looks like there's like, that video was like filmed across different seasons. Did you film it like all in the same time, or was it just like filmed over the course of actually like different seasons?
Well, you know, we had a weird winter, you know, where it was like,
I guess that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like the day we did like the full band stuff.
Yeah. There was one Saturday where for like 12 hours or something we were filming, and that's where most of all the full band shots came from that day. And then I think that like some individual shots of yours were from a few weeks before that, but it wasn't like separate seasons. It was all just January and February.
It was really cold. That's all.
That's crazy because I mean, there's like definitely some parts of the video that look like winter, and then some parts that look like spring. But I guess that is a Pittsburgh winter. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I did forget where we live.
Yeah. Well, no, and that is kind of cool, because I mean, that's kind of the whole concept of the album is kind of like, I don't know, it's seasonal. You know, you go through these like winters where you shut in and you become like, you know, almost like a hermit, you know, and then when the sun comes out, you start spreading out, you know, and we wanted the video to feel like claustrophobic. You know what I mean? We didn't really have any initial like concept. I think it was just like, okay, the song is about being like emotionally calloused from just being like worn out and exhausted. So let's try to like make the video feel like you're in a doomsday bunker or something, you know, or like isolated in the middle of nowhere, or with a bunch of junk cars that are worn out as well, you know, and we ran with it. And honestly, Ralph and the guys who directed it took it to a whole, I mean, you introduced us to them.
So Ralph and Anthony, I go to Point Park, and they just graduated from there in the film school.
What are you doing at Point Park?
Global Cultural Studies.
Okay.
Yeah. That's cool. Topic for another day. But, and Ralph's one of my best friends, and he was just saying like he wanted to do a music video for us. It wasn't even like I didn't even think I asked him initially. I think he just told me he wanted to. And so both of them just like, it wasn't like we hired some guys to do a video. It was like our friends were like, we want to make this. And they just did an amazing job of, taking David's basic ideas and turning them into something like really amazing.
Yeah. And the ideas weren't really like stone cut either. It was kind of just like, here's some things I'd like to visually grasp. I had like actually no ideas. I mean, I just, I had no ideas. And I was just like, guys, I need some help to like flesh this concept out. And Anthony Peduzzi and Ralph DeLulo really like, just like, whew, blew the expectations out of the water. Cause me personally, I never really ever wanted to like do a music video. And especially one, I never was for the idea of doing like a video where it was like us performing. Cause I always thought that was kind of weird. Like,
Sure.
cause I always think of that like Asking Alexandria video where they're playing in the rain and the sun. You know what I mean? Like how improbable is that?
Every
Like
2000s metalcore video.
exactly. It's just like, you can never, it's so unbelievable, you know, but they proved me wrong. Like I did want that music video. So.
I think it just comes down to, taste and vision and just doing it in a way that is not blatantly over the top or corny, but an Asking Alexandria band. I mean, they want corny. That's that's what what the people that are into that stuff kind of crave, that cheese, they're cheese fiends.
Yeah. And like, like I just like, if you were, my thought process on it was always like, if you're going to have like a video of like you performing to like a recorded track, why don't you just like set up some mics in a studio and like just do like a live like audio tree session or something. But with them, it was kind of just like visually, like I'll never forget like the first time looking at their little viewfinder thing and just seeing how like crisp the shot was and just being like, wow, just really happy with how it went,
Yeah, no, it looks great. Everything looks super professional, and I think they did a great job. So speaking of things looking professional, Dylan, can we adjust your mic stand because it is blocking David's face?
Totally.
So we'll just kind of maybe go in a bit. Yeah.
There we go.
And then we'll bring you in a bit and kind of up.
Nice.
And I think maybe that might be a little bit better. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This a newer space. We're still working out the kinks. But back to being professional. Another thing that has impressed me with the album that you're putting together. I mean, the album artwork is great. The video looks great. And out of, this is episode maybe 231 or 2 that I've done of the podcast. Not many people have sent me press kits.
Oh yeah.
Before coming on. And you sent me a press kit, and congrats on having your shit together. It just seems like, the band's really trying on this effort to make sure people are listening to this. You had the music video was premiered by a blog. Yeah. So that was obviously some coordinating, to get that done. And it seems like you're taking those steps that, you actually want people to hear this music. I feel that there are a lot of bands that, nothing against any of these bands, but they will release something and it's the way that they go about releasing it. It seems as if they don't really want people to listen to it, or they're just expecting, putting it out there is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I could put $100 on the patio and somebody might find it, but if I don't tell anybody that's there, chances are nobody's going to look for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think what it really comes down to is people are only going to take you as seriously as you take yourself. You know what I mean? And, it's just, I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, I mean, I just think about like all my favorite bands and like their rollout, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a pretty important thing to like be excited about a rollout, and we're at the stage now where we can't do like any like experimental rollout by any means. Like, I mean, my favorite rollout of all time was To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick. Just the way that like the single came out and then the single was like the studio version, and then him performing that single was in the album, and part like the single release was part of the concept of the album, which was just like mind blowing to me. And you think about how important a rollout is and how important it is to like make yourself look worth listening to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what draws people in, for the most part. And I do really want, I mean, we all put like so much work into the album that it, you're only, once you finish the album, you're only at the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's kind of like a depressing thing to think of. Yeah. Make the music look like it's worth listening to. Like that sentence, but it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's
we're in a really weird time frame now where before, whenever I was coming out of high school and things like that, and doing music, it wasn't like it is now. That wasn't really a conversation, of like, oh, this needs to look as good as it possibly can so people will listen to it. But I don't know if that's really a difference of the times, like if that's a 2019 thing or if that's just me now being ready to take the next step with my music and taking it more seriously. Because I guess if you think about it, it's always kind of been about what it looks like and what's attached to it with any classic album or band that's been super duper popular.
Yeah. I just, to me, I think about how like much a rollout impacts me and makes me excited about something. And like the rollout now with the streaming age has almost become like an artistic expression in itself. You know what I mean? And I only let like our outward presence be like an extension of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like with all of our graphics, I use like my handwriting, you know what I mean? Cause I think there's like heart and not necessarily trying to appeal to people, but like using the forum of outward presence as another artistic like outlet, So like we got to work with a lot of like our photographer, David McCandless, like his photography is phenomenal. And I was so excited, like regardless of what other, wasn't necessarily aiming for us to look like the next big band. It was more like let's take some cool pictures and let it be an extension of like what we are and like what we, what kind of art we want to like represent, I guess.
Yeah, the band photo is such a weird thing. And I feel that I kind of, with Gray Walker, it's easy because it's like, okay, well, we're a heavy metal band, so heavy metal band photos are so fucking easy to do. But with like Sykes and a New Violence, it's like, okay, I'm a hip hop thing, I guess, but I don't even know what looking traditionally hip hop is.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, I don't look like that. So what do we do for photos? So we're always like staging these goofy scenarios for photos now.
Yeah.
And just like, it's like, well, I guess we'll just do something silly because we can't look serious and have anybody take us seriously ever. It's not going to happen.
I know. That's the thing is like, I love the little goofs. You know what I mean? Like, it's important to have little goofs, like in the music video.
Let me tell you, So I'm going to give a little bit of the backstory. So there's this one moment in Eight Legged Dog when the word thick is screamed. And we had a video of us playing that song acoustically in our friend's backyard that my friend Emery took. And whenever David says thick, like he says it real loud and he turns from the camera. And I made this like meme out of it just for us.
Like THICC.
Yeah. And it like, I made it like super amplified and distorted. So like, and then after that is when you're like, we should just start all yelling thick when that happens. So out of my meme comes this thing that we do. And then for the music video, at that point, we like are all sitting next to one another and we like look up in the sky and say thick. And I like, I'm really giggly, especially when I need to not be. And so I like, that was like the 9th take of that, had to have been. And I still giggle a little bit in it, but it was like, I didn't giggle enough that they said we needed to redo it. They were just like, all right, we're done. So if you like look at that point in the music video, you can see like a little bit of smoke.
Smile starts cracking.
Yeah, like the cold air of
and
my exhale.
It was like one of those moments too, where it was like, it started like snowing. Like it started, I mean, we went into Mike's woods and like we took a drum set out with the quad and stuff, and we were just
drum set on a quad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's one way to transport it.
We were freezing our asses off. Like we were literally like I couldn't feel my fingers, and it took like we were trying to get a good take of this whole concept of going thick, and he kept laughing, and it was just like Dylan, like, and then we were just like, that we wouldn't want it any other way because Dylan would obviously laugh at that. You know what I mean? So it's like, we got to roll with that. That's what has the heart in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And this brings me to an interesting topic and something that I love talking to bands about, especially bands that have the art itself is kind of based in a more like serious, deep, emotional thing. And there's obviously a lot of that in String Machine's music. But I'm sitting here, I'm talking with the two of you. I could tell you're a couple of goofballs. Everybody has lighthearted stuff. And like, how do you go about like balancing that like work and play or business and play with like, you know, the emotional weight of maybe what's attached to some of your songs, but also, you know, having a good time with your friends and wanting people to feel like this isn't just like this big pit of emotional despair. Like this is something you can have fun being a part of as well.
That's a thing I've been really trying to like grasp in my lyrics, because, you know, I feel like some people can get away with just like just being like serious all the time. And one thing I'm really trying to like grasp with my art is just where we are in today's society. Like even in like a heavy album, like, you know, when you think of like a lot of hip hop, even, you know, there's moments that aren't humorous, but playful. You know what I mean? And I think that's like a very important dynamic to have. You know what I mean? Like, trying to think of like a specific moment in like To Pimp a Butterfly where, you know, or like the end of Mama where it's like, you know,
yeah,
what I mean?
or maybe like the chorus of the one with Snoop.
Yeah,
with like his grandma
shit
talking.
yeah, exactly. And like,
Yeah.
I think playfulness is like very important because, that's life. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a guy that's just sitting here like saying poetic shit all the time.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, I think I've been really trying to like incorporate lyrics that aren't too like metaphorical and poetic, because it's just like, that's not really me. Like I am that guy inside. Like I think about things a lot, you know, but there's also a part of me that like is playful and like wants to just like, you know,
Yeah.
mess around. Like the opening track of the album is like, it's funny because it gets laughs. That's one thing I really wanted to do. We're friends with this band called, or I'm at, San Pellegrino, and their EP is so perfectly like playful because it doesn't like take itself too seriously. And I think that's the whole, like what we strive for is to not take ourselves too seriously, but just like, just kind of just be like what we are, you know, and hope that people cling to it, you know? And, with something as heavy as String Machine, like, you know, in terms of lyrical content and mood of the overall music, that's why I kind of think it's important to like include songs like Old Mac, where we just say happy birthday to my friend. You know what I mean? like there's a part in the song where we just go happy birthday to my best friend Bryce, and then
It's a great moment.
Yeah, another lyric where I give a little tidbit about like there was last summer on his birthday, we went and saw Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie, and we thought if we were going to see that show, we had this. I'm new to the whole like that scene thing.
Okay,
so like we were like, okay, people going to this show, it might be like, you know, like almost like Gathering of the Juggalos. Like people might put like makeup on, look like dark and goth and like vampires and stuff. So we went to the show in full goth, like thinking that we were gonna like jive with the crowd a little more, but everyone else just looked like normal people. Like we overcompensated way too much. And we show up and like we go to a McDonald's before we got to the show. And the people in line at the McDonald's were like, I wonder where you're going, because it was at Star Lake, you know?
Yeah.
And like you know, that was something that happened in my life. And I think it's, you know, it was funny enough of a thing that, you know, we did that.
I love that. That's hysterical.
It was just like, yeah.
And I think also like, I feel like we put a lot of work into practice, and like we goof off obviously, but like a lot of the like hard work happens in practice, and then we just practice so much that whenever we perform, there's so much room for us to like play, I guess. Like the music has gotten to a point where we like feel really comfortable playing it, and we're not like all hyper focused on our instruments, and we can just like, the way that I see us performing live is like we're practicing with more friends there, and I don't know. I just have like so many moments where I lock eyes with Ian, our trumpet player / guitarist. He's super weird and like a great performer, and I'm just like happy to be there with him. I don't know. I just think performing is like so much fun because we put in a lot of work outside of that.
Yeah, and it's like you know, we're a serious band. You know, like you said, the lyrical content gets serious, and we touch on some themes that are kind of like dark and
even
deep
like
and-
musically, like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of moodiness to and just emotional weight
Yeah,
I feel when listening to the album.
exactly. And like then again, like for Halloween,
Yeah.
for Halloween, you know how bands do the cover sets, and they
Yeah.
usually, and I thought it for years. Me and the drummer Nick have been scheming this idea, because like we see like people do like joke sets. You know what I mean? You'll see a band that you like in the local scene. They'll be like doing Blink-182. We were like, what if we take it a step further and like we're String Machine, this dark, moody band, and we do a cover set of High School Musical, and it's like,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So we did a
It
High
was a
School
meme.
Musical cover set.
whole
It
thing
was
was a
it was
meme.
hilarious, because no one would have ever expected us to do that. You know what I mean? And it was a lot of fun. Like we incorporated,
Yeah.
like we didn't. It wasn't all High School Musical. Like we incorporated like Avril Lavigne. We did Bon Jovi, and then closed out the night with Crank That Soldier Boy.
Okay. So it's a
And-
nice medley.
Yeah, exactly. And what was hilarious is that we had Ian and Laurel, who were actually like a couple, and they're both in our band. We had them be like, what's their name? Troy and Gabriella.
Yeah.
We had them.
Okay.
And they like would improv skits in between songs. So we made a
Yeah.
musical out of it.
It was
and
fun. And I was the
it
only
was-
other one who dressed up as anything,
yeah.
which was uncomfortable.
We were all supposed to dress up as like High School Musical people, and he dressed up as Sharpay, so he had like pink
Sweet.
dress on,
Yeah. It was
and
fun.
none of I felt bad, but none of us all.
You were dressed as Robin Hood.
Yeah, I had to like, my girlfriend was there too, so like we were trying to like match,
Yeah.
cute stuff like that. So like
She was Tinkerbell.
she was Tinkerbell, I was Peter Pan.
Oh, Peter Pan.
Yeah, I was Peter Pan,
Not
Wait.
Robin Hood.
Yeah. But
Same
yeah,
thing.
so with the weight of the music, I guess all in all, with the weight of the music, we just
You're still humans.
exactly. We just try to make it an extension of ourselves, and I think in this day and age, like nothing takes itself too seriously. Like I think it's a masterpiece that like Old Town Road is what it is.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like it doesn't take itself seriously. It's freely expressive too, and it's like just kind of like ear candy that isn't like necessary. Like we can get caught up in like gourmet lasagna, or we can like have our warheads that sour and
Sure.
might not be enjoyable, but it's something to put in your mouth and kind of, you know what I'm saying? I don't really know how else to sum this
Old
up.
Town Road.
Yeah.
Warheads.
But like we're in an age where things don't take themselves too seriously, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
that's,
everything is a meme for sure.
exactly, and that's what's beautiful about the times we live in. So it's like hard being like poetic without trying to like it's almost essential to like touch base on like the themes of like modern art, which is just memes, So
Yeah,
it's
I
like-
think that you need to. I think that's how you connect with people in the world nowadays. Is just show them that like, you are not this, like you're not this brick wall of that is impenetrable.
Yeah.
It's like, I like. It's not necessarily like silly things. I think it's just that's just how people seem to connect nowadays,
Yeah.
is through a meme in one way or another.
yeah,
And it's very
and I think
it's very
like
strange for me, but
yeah, if you're like trying
working
to
on it.
if you're trying to like crack the code of another human's like emotional like palette, you're not going to get there by just saying like a Robert Frost poem. Like
Yeah,
you
no.
have to incorporate something weird,
Yeah.
you have to, cause like people are funny,
Yeah.
Like,
Speaking of palettes,
mhm.
let's move into this. You got a
Okay.
band with a lot of people in it.
Mhm.
All right. This is something that I like to talk to bands about, but I got to know, after a show, where does String Machine go for some grub?
For some grub.
Do you have like a group spot where everybody likes to hang out, or is this divided? Are you a divided band when it comes to food?
Well,
Well,
I don't know.
Let me throw in one thing. We most of us up until this point lived half an hour to an hour away from the
45 minutes.
city.
We're originally from Butler, and we recently just moved to like north, like actually just last month moved to North Side.
So when the shows are ending at like 11:30, most of us are like, we need to get home.
yeah, like
Fair
Taco
enough.
Bell.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But is there a grub place that we could say?
Eaton Park a couple times.
Yeah.
We went there that one time with
Oh,
dancing.
grub though. One time we took the whole like we went on tour, but we took all 7 of us plus 3 other people. Like it was like 3 other people,
the whole
plus
gang,
the
yeah.
7 of us. So it was stressful as is, but we were like playing Chicago, and there was like this, like a good, like the band wanted to do like Chicago pizza.
Okay.
And like the Chicago deep dish. And it actually ended up causing an argument.
And the pizza fiasco of 2018.
Oh,
Yeah,
let's get into this.
It was like, it was like an argument because we didn't, like, we were running out of time. Like we're at the gig, we're loading in, and like.
It was, well, we went to the Chicago
Music Exchange. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that place is
so we were in there for a
Amazing.
long
Exactly.
time.
yeah.
And we were running out of time, like in terms of like loading in and actually just being at the show, and stress of the whole situation. Cause there was like people who were like, where are we going to get pizza? And then there was like some of us that were like, well, how are we going to, we got to figure out a plan cause with 7 people on stage, like in a basement, we had to like, figure out like where everyone's going to go, you know,
absolutely.
like, I mean, honestly, so it was just stressful. We were in traffic for a long time. And the funniest thing, it caused this band argument. And we finally just like had the pizza, we were all kind of like quietly eating it. And then Ian, our trumpet player, who was like the most adamant about the pizza, was just like, okay, I'll say it. This pizza sucks. So it just completely relieved any argument, like stress we were having. We really got over it immediately. As soon as Ian needed to say that, it was like the icebreaker that completely killed all tension. And it was like, next time we come to Chicago, we'll go to a good
because I don't think it even was it even deep dish?
We had like conflicting reports from some of the people who like lived there that like that wasn't like actual, that was a bad representation. I was like, I'm happy it was, because now we have the opportunity to like go and have that experience as a band still, without it being a tense situation.
Yeah.
But
It's true.
But like local places, I mean, where do we like?
Or do you have like maybe like a band practice ritual that maybe y'all do whenever you get together?
Oh. Your show, you have a thing. Every single show.
Well, yeah, this isn't a band thing, but I guess it's becoming part of String Machine's experience. I got a guitar a couple years ago because I couldn't, with us having 7 people and being in basements all the time, my like keyboard plus mixer and machine setup was just like way too big.
Yeah.
I was always taking up a lot of space. And I found a guitar at Pianos and Stuff on sale. I was like, all right. And I bought it. And it has a little pouch on the strap for cables, which is just weird because like when you're wearing something, you probably don't have the cables in it. But there's a pouch. So I stock it with Werther's Originals. And in between each song, I toss one out. And the goal is to make people feel like they're in their grandmother's living room.
I love this.
Yeah. So the Werther's is kind of
the band grub.
Werther's is the band grub.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone in the band likes them. There's like most times people are like, Billy, give me a Werther's.
Yeah, we live together now. So he has like a bowl of them on our table. And I was like, I didn't appreciate Werther's that much until they're literally like so accessible now. And I love it. So.
Werther's are legit. I like Werther's. Shout outs to Werther's.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
That's good stuff.
I wish I could think of something that we like a place we like around here though. I'd love to give a shout out.
You just recently moved to this part of town. And now maybe you'll have more opportunity when you're playing gigs locally to, find a spot that you like. Well, I'll ask you in a few months.
Yeah, we talked earlier. Monterey Pub is a good start. Yeah, that's a good start. Have you been there yet?
I haven't yet. No.
It's like right around the block from where we live, and they had a great patty melt. So I mean, that's something, right?
Yeah, that works.
Good. That's cool.
Hell yeah.
I'm thinking SPAC, but you can't say SPAC because like, that's every band's place.
I feel like
it's across from Roboto.
Not a lot of people shout out SPAC on the podcast.
SPAC is amazing.
Man, the seitan, is that how you pronounce it? Seitan buffalo chicken, but it's not chicken. It's like is that what it is? Yeah, that pizza is delicious. Yeah, we get that. I got that. Yeah, that pizza is awesome. The buffalo seitan pizza at SPAC is phenomenal.
Hell yeah. Dude, how you doing on beer? You want a topper offer there? You want more?
Yeah.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some beer. And while I'm gone, why don't you tell people where they can find String Machine on the internet?
Okay. That sounds like a... Hey, Dylan, where can they find String Machine on the internet?
Well, there's a few places. One, Instagram. Probably the best one as far as updates go.
Yeah, Instagram is our forum
At
choice.
String Machine Music.
Yeah.
And
then
Bandcamp. Yes. String Machine.
Spotify, Apple Music. Recently just got Twitter, which we're trying to utilize as like our casual, where we're a little more casual and less like...
That's the place to meme, dude.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's I like I really want like that to be the place where we're not as like promote-y,
Yeah.
And
then Facebook, if you want to keep up with shows and stuff, most of our events will be posted on there, which we'll post about on the Instagram. But if you want to see event pages, Facebook's the place to go.
Facebook. Yeah. And
yeah, even though Facebook's kind of the devil.
Hey, thanks.
You got to use
the
it.
beer.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. We'll do a cheers real quick. Cool. Cheers. I want to put a quick shout out there to anybody who maybe has nothing else better to do on Thursdays and Sundays. I could really use somebody to help produce the show. Maybe if you want to keep an eye on the camera, get us beers and just hang out and be a nice person, we could really use that. So if you want to volunteer for Start the Beat, hit me up. That'd be cool.
Hey, I'll be that guy. Your shout out just worked, I'll be that guy.
Except on Thursdays.
Yeah.
On Sundays, though.
Oh, Thursdays, yeah.
Thursdays we have band practice.
What is happening?
Immediate, response to the shout out.
I fucks with it. So, I mentioned before about you having the press kit, and as part of the press kit, you have a bio.
Mm-hmm.
Not many bands take the time to put together bios, and I don't want to sit here and rip on other bands that don't, put together bios, but how long do you think it realistically took you to get a few paragraphs together about your band?
Well, cool enough. Like I said, the Earthwalk Collective is a bunch of artists, etc. And I always have this weird feeling that a band, a member of the band shouldn't write their own bio because they kind of have a warped perception of their own band. Yeah. So I always like to commission writers, any chance that kind of thing comes up, just so their perspective is a little more accurate to what other people would think too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if I write it, I might warp it into what I want it to be. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And we got it was actually a professor we met at our community college, Jeffrey Schrader, and we actually ended up just being really good friends with him. And we got him. I asked him to write it, and he did, and it was really cool because what I did was just okay, man, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit down at the computer and I'm just going to start typing, and I won't stop typing because I don't want it to be too overthought, the info I give you about the album and stuff or where we're from and what we are. I just want it to be what I would say rather than what I would think about and type.
Then you had them put it together into a nice...
Exactly,
form.
a nice little thing, and I love the sentiments that he says, and it doesn't stick to. I like how he turned it into his own little thing. He could have easily just been String Machine's a band from Pittsburgh that does this, and they were featured on this. He could have easily done that, but he turned it into kind of our reality. What it's like to be. A little
biography, right?
Yeah, what it's like to be from rural
Humanized
Pennsylvania. Yeah, because from Butler's perspective, we have it's a big rural town and he touches upon the fact that a lot of the environment and a lot of the habitats that a lot of the woods are getting kind of pillaged by fracking wells and them building new communities and stuff. And those are sentiments that we really kind of support. So it's kind of cool to have that weaved in to kind of give a full picture of.
We don't support fracking.
Yeah.
We're against that.
Yeah, we're against fracking. Yeah.
Fracking, boo.
Exactly.
That wasn't a boo to your...
Oh,
Yeah, you get what I'm saying. You feel me? You feel me?
Boo fracking.
Yeah,
Sure.
fuck it. Fuck them. So do you have any advice for up and coming bands? You know, I mean, you're still up and coming.
Yeah.
We're all up and coming in our own ways, but you know, what do you think has helped you the most in terms of like, you know, getting that bio together, getting that press kit together, getting the video done, getting the album done? Like, do you see like a common thread in productivity because I think there's a common thread in productivity that makes all that stuff work out. But for you and String Machine, what would you recommend to bands that are like trying to get their shit together?
Be in a band with David Beck would be my advice.
I mean, we were taught like when you're in English school, like me and him both kind of studied English. I'm not saying I'm some scholar or anything. I just went to community college for 2 years. But when you're
Shout
like
out to Professor Anderson,
Coolest
professor ever.
And when you're in those classes like creative writing and stuff, they always tell you that like if like me and him met in creative thinking, which ended up being kind of a stupid class, right?
Yeah.
You know? But there was like,
But you met each other. So.
exactly. No, that's
Very
kind of
special
cool. And what we kind of learned in that class is that it is a lot of ethic. It's a lot of just work ethic. Like if you sit around and wait for like some creative spirit, like I think the concept of like creative spirit is kind of like overrated. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And I think the concept of like waiting to be found is overrated too in the same sense. You know what I mean? So you have to keep your line in the water. That's what I always equate it to. You know what I mean? With writing
That's
songs.
some Butler sounding shit right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Man. Yeah, I mean, I used to live in the woods, so this whole north side thing is going to be interesting, you know. But yeah, no, you just got to keep working at it, and it's a lot of work ethic to just keep at it, you know. Like you know what you want to see your band be, so like make it the best it can be, you know.
Absolutely.
Like, if you want people to perceive you as like the next like whatever, you know, band you're a fan of, well, act like the band you're a fan of and kind of like try to not replicate, but kind of just like be inspired to do that, you know.
Definitely. I think another big part too is just don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to talk to people.
Exactly.
Communication is key.
Yeah. That was a big thing we learned, is also just observing other bands too, you know, because once you start playing shows around and some bands have successes and some bands don't, you know, and some of the bands that we know, we kind of like follow suit and see that, you know, what they're doing, and we're kind of like, oh, maybe we should do that too, you know, keeping your stuff together, deadlines, to-do lists, you know, all that, you know, and make it presentable, you know, right? That's kind of the whole concept, you know?
Yeah.
Like for example, our friend David McCandless, he like
The photographer.
exactly. Yeah. And
Killing it.
yeah, exactly. No, and I just remember seeing him, like we used to be in a band together, and I remember when he just started taking pictures for fun, you know, and all it took was a little like web design, a little like promotion, little more like a little targeting ads and stuff like that, and now he's full-blown wedding photographer, like all from the ground up, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you treat your art with that much like oomph, then might as well lead with your right, you know, the right foot forward, you know.
I think so much is really to be said. Like if you don't give a shit about it, how can you expect anybody else to care about it?
Yeah.
You really got to be able to show that you care about it, show that you're a normal person. You got to meme right, and you got to, you know, just
exactly
act like you give a shit about what you're doing.
Yeah, just like your present. I just like to think of our presence as an extension of like our art. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like fashion in a way. I'm not a fashion guru by any means, but I can acknowledge, I think that you could almost make any outfit work if you can like wear it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the right confidence about what you're doing and you just have this aura to you, you could pull off just about anything because it's you, and that's what makes it great. And I think like a lot of music can be exactly the same way, even if you're doing the most avant-garde, off the wall thing,
Mm-hmm.
if you present it with just this air of confidence and like, yeah, this is me and this is my thing and
Yeah.
check it out. And there's like
Yeah.
this excitement to it.
Mhm.
People are going to be drawn to it. Like, what? Like, cool. Like,
Yeah.
rather than like, I do this thing and like you wouldn't get it, or
Yeah.
or being like, oh yeah, we're in a band, we're all right, we were okay. Like I hate when I meet people and they do that. And it's just like, we're not that good. Like whenever I joined Greywalker, they would always post these things like jokingly about how like, yeah, we suck. I'm like, we need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
It needs. We need to be like, no, like, hey, we're a metal band. Come fucking headbang, have fun. You know, like
Exactly.
Yeah.
the way you
like,
present yourself. It like even if it's not outwardly negative, it can still come off that way if you're just like putting that vocabulary around yourself.
Yeah. And it's also just a bummer. Like when, like, for example, like I there's bands that I'm like actually a fan of around here that like, you'll see them post something like, oh, you know, like you were saying, we suck or whatever. And it's like, it almost like kind of deflates you. Like, oh, I'm really, that makes me sad that they think that they suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I don't, you know, I think a lot of people are rooting for us. So it's like, we gotta like let them know that like we're worth rooting for. You know?
I was, shout outs to, my friends, Donnie and Carolyn from Dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
We had dinner with them last night and they were asking about who was going to be on the show tomorrow. And I mentioned that you guys were coming on, and Donnie was like, oh, they're really, really good.
Oh, nice.
She really likes you guys. So
Yeah,
we played with them.
Sick.
Yeah, we played with them. When did we play with them?
I want to say it was it a
Like
Spirit
last
show?
year. No, it was at Roboto, but it was like with a band. I forget. But they're
might not have
great
been
too. I mean, I don't know them that well.
oh, they're awesome people.
Yeah, I just know that they were fantastic live.
Yeah.
They really, I love bands that like go out of their way, you know, because a lot of bands will just like set up at a house or something and it'd be like, it is what it is, you know, but they go out of their way. Like, they had a separate speaker system that would like play all their samples and stuff. And it was like, okay, they actually like care about
Yeah.
like how they sound. Like they're
Totally.
trying to give us a good show. And I love that appreciation.
Yeah,
you know?
that's actually, this segues perfectly into my next question and maybe one of our last topics. We're approaching an hour.
Mhm.
And but before we wrap up, I do want to talk to you about this particular thing. We touched on it a bit before when you were talking about Chicago, playing in the basement, having 7 people trying to figure out who's going to go where. You know, we come up in this world of DIY, and in that there's a lot of use of alternative venue spaces. And I want to know your thoughts and String Machine's thoughts on alternative venue spaces and like how you deal with being put in the situations that aren't the most favorable.
You talking about Friday?
Yeah. Nah, we'll leave Friday go. But
Well, we just played the Mattress Factory, which was like different. That was for a kickoff party to their summer teen program. Our friend Nika got us that gig. And I feel like in most cases, like we're always excited to play a space that wouldn't normally be a concert venue. And that one in particular was just really, really cool to be able to play in a place that like we love the art there and like just the vibe of that place. Yeah, I don't know. We've had to get used to playing wherever.
yeah, I mean, that's how you kind of start out, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's the best way. Like the best way to connect with people and like let them know. I always compare like starting out as like, if you're looking at like I think a good fan base always starts with just a good circle of friends, and there's no shame in that. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the concept, right? You know, like, like if you look out into an open field and there's like bonfires sprawled out across this like open field, you're probably going to gravitate towards the bonfire that has like the most people cheering and having a good time around, you know?
Totally.
And at these house shows, you can meet people and just become friends and support other bands and stuff. And their friends will be like, what's this band that everyone's kind of like hyping up? And then maybe I think that's how you kind of generate like genuine fans these days, is just starts with a good support system beyond like the people who make the art. It's the people who like initially support the art, you know? And then it kind of lures in this whole like, okay, this thing is a thing, you know, and that's the thing. I love playing the house venues and stuff. I think we've had our best times in house venues.
Big shout out to Stu and Claire and
Stu,
Sam.
Claire, and all those
all the
those
Oakland
people.
homies.
And and I've met people at these DIY venues that I are genuinely like my best friends now. You know what I mean? And that's probably the most like Man Dancing. We play around with this band called Man Dancing, who's actually playing at our release show on August 3rd at Roboto.
Get some stuff.
Our friends Man Dancing are from New Jersey, and we met them, and they have become like best friends. Like not just band friends that you're like, oh, hey, it's nice to see you. Like they have become like friends,
That's awesome.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's the most rewarding thing about this all. And the spaces are great too. Honestly, we'll play anywhere. I mean, where wouldn't we play, you know, other than where we played on Friday?
I think that I've been saying this a lot, you know, when thinking about how to generate fans as a band. I think it's important now to realize that nobody wants to be your fan. They want to be your friend.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be friends with the people that you want to be your fans, why do you want them to be your fans? Unless you're just trying to sell them some disingenuine bullshit, you know what I mean? Like supplement pills or something weird, you know? If you're like sharing art with people and you want them to engage with it, I think it's really important to establish real connections and real relationships. And, you know, I think it's awesome too, in terms of alternative venue spaces. I'm all for it. I think that depending on the style of music that you are, you just need to have communication with the venue and make sure you know what you're walking into. That's what I think is really great about Dinosaur, and they know what they need. So they have their extra speakers and stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. You know, we can play wherever we need to now, and we don't got to worry about a place not having like a PA that sounds right, because we have this, and then we could work with it. Just
we have to do that.
make those adjustments.
No, I mean, and when it gets to that point, like, I mean, isn't that kind of what we always pray for, is that like we get to a point where we can like be playing venues where we have like our sound requirements or whatever, you know what I mean? That's kind of the end goal, but like for the time being, we have to be realistic and know that like a lot of the venues that we're going to be welcome at and have success at are venues where we're going to have to be really self-reliant with our sound.
Well, I think that no matter what, even if you're playing a stage AE, you know, for anybody in Pittsburgh, you know, like a big venue, you still need to be as self-reliant as possible. You should know every little in and out of what's going on, so you know exactly what to ask for. It's almost like if you're in the studio working with a producer or an engineer, I think it's really important to have an understanding of recording. So if you're working with somebody, instead of saying like, hey, you know, I think the snare drum needs turned up, you could actually be like, yo, I think the issue is that there's too much low end in this frequency, and like, you know, you can communicate better. And then in a live environment, you could do the same thing, having that understanding of how it works. And if you can make, you know, a room like we're sitting in now sound like as good as a show at Stage E or something like that, you'll never have a problem ever. It's almost like a I don't want to say like a war is a dramatic example, but you know, like playing a tour of like a bunch of DIY venues can feel just like a real battle. But if you can like learn how to make each of those spaces sound perfect for your sound, in the long run, it's going to really benefit you, because you're just going to be able to sound killer anywhere, because you're going to understand like how acoustics work and how your layout works. And I think another thing too, it teaches you discipline and compromise, because there's always those things that you need to come to terms with too, because it's going to be a situation where like maybe that one person that likes to move around a lot during a show is not going to be able to move around as much tonight, and they just got to get over it. Or, you know, maybe something's just not going to be able to sound as good, or, you know, you're not going to be able to have your amps up as loud as you need to, and things like that. Just figuring that out and being like very mature and respectful as possible, unless the venue's being shitty.
Yeah.
But in that environment where you could still deal with it and not totally implode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
There's
I think that's like my whole concept with do it yourself too.
Yeah.
Is like, you have to do it yourself initially to know what you're like paying other people to do for you in the future.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like it took us booking our own tours to realize why an agent is necessary for like a big tour, because it's like, okay, it is a lot of work. You realize the work that you're paying for by doing it yourself. You know what I mean? And like recording your own album, you know what you're paying for, trying to mix your own album. I think it's important for all bands to like kind of do all those things themselves, so they know in the future, if you do sign a record deal, it's what you're paying them to do, you know?
It's almost like that analogy that people make when they say like everybody should work in the service industry at some point in their life. I feel like if you're in a band, you should definitely, I mean, it's not required, but I think it would do nothing but benefit you to have those experiences and understand how all of those little nuances work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also like kind of helps you grow like empathy for like the sound guy.
Like
the guy who's running sound, you're like, okay, I understand his deal right now.
The biggest thing that I think every band should do is set up their own show.
Yeah.
Like it really grinds my gears whenever a band complains about the way promoters do certain things that have never set up a show themselves. It's like, it's the amount of work that goes into just setting, I mean, let alone a tour, but like just setting up one local show.
Yeah.
And having it be a success. You know, until you've done that, I really don't feel like you have any right to complain about how another promoter's doing their job.
Exactly.
Know?
And that applies to a lot of things.
That's why it's like hard for me at times to kind of gripe on, you know, people running certain big music festivals and the way things are run, because I've never run a multi-day festival involving, you know, a lot of different places. It's a lot to do.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, so it's like, it's hard to critique it, but it's also fair enough for me, I think, to say that, you know, I feel that like it may be biting off more than you could chew for the sake of having large numbers on a flyer to promote an event is maybe not the best way to do an event.
Yeah.
Because you know, I know certain people that run certain events and I'm friends with them on Facebook, and seeing posts about said events and like, yeah, you know, today was a post like, oh, you know, fuck the haters. Everything was well. People came and they were happy. Everyone had a good time. And in my head, I'm like, I've talked to a bunch of bands that had miserable times. I'm glad that the people that came out and drank a bunch of beer, that probably a large chunk of, if we're going to be real, couldn't give a fuck less about most of the bands playing. They're coming to drink in the street. They're not coming to watch live music. They'll pop in and check out some stuff, but you know, they're not like, did you have merchandise set up when you played at said event?
Yeah. We don't have that like much merch though. But like our other bands did. Yeah.
I would just be curious to know like how bands did on merch and how like what the traction is from actual, like, I mean, even though like selling merch isn't necessarily a be all end all of gaining new fans, I'd be curious to know in some way, like how many like new social media followers or merch sales or this or that, you know, a lot of bands walked away with. Cause I feel like some of these events are really just like drinking party or music festivals disguised as drinking parties.
Yeah.
Not saying there isn't like a huge chunk of people that go and like watch a lot of bands, but I would just say, I think the majority is a lot higher on the side of just like, oh, well, you can go drink outside and there's music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And walk around freely. You know?
Yeah.
That's another appeal.
Try not to be a cynic, but I don't know. Yeah. I was walking around and I was just based on how I feel and some strangers that I talked to and people, it seemed it was a lot more of just like, oh, this is cute. Yeah. Let's get a beer.
Yeah. I don't, it's hard to even say like,
but at the same time, I've never booked anything like that. So I can't talk too much shit.
Yeah. No. And that's exactly it. It's like, it's even hard to like think of what you would do better. Right. You know, like it's kind of hard to like think about that. Like
I would say, you know, less stages, less bands. It's still plenty of entertainment. Just focus in on it. And make sure that the bands that are playing are placed appropriately.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like I don't even care that much about it being like, okay, a majority of people that are just coming to drink and hang out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I guarantee you, if bands are placed appropriately and they're able to really do their set at 100%, they're going to have a much greater chance of actually turning some of those people that are there into fans
Right.
instead
Yeah.
of putting a large chunk of your talent into awkward situations.
Yeah.
So they feel awkward. They're playing awkward. It's not right. And then people that have never heard of them are seeing them and they're just kind of like, oh, local music's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is this what
Yeah,
it's
that's
like?
true.
You know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's kind of tied into that same thing about like a band saying like, oh, they suck, or like saying bad things about themselves online. Like if a band's playing a show where they shouldn't be
Mhm.
and they feel all weird, it's just like the vibe's weird and
Yeah.
nobody's going to want to engage with that. That doesn't
Yeah,
do anybody a
true.
favor. The venue's pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, the band's not happy and the
Yeah.
people were confused,
Yeah.
but everybody still has beer and they're still making money from that. So the festival is a success.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think
No, I
I think
gotcha.
I think Deutschtown, like,
Oh, no, that's okay. I don't care.
yeah. A lot of the, well, you know, and it applies to any festival, you know. I don't know. I think that we've had great years there. We've had like great times with the people who have organized it. We've had, I mean, that's, you know, and it's like people who are at the festival. Like, I think of it more as like a celebration, like where all the local musicians are going to be in one place at one time.
Totally.
And they're going to browse that list and be like, okay, this is almost like the Super Bowl of, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
not
sure.
even
Well-
Super Bowl, but like more of like oh, I'm going to finally get to see this band that I love, but never get, like, for example, I never get to see Pet Clinic. I don't know why, but they're like one of my favorite local bands. And browsing that list and seeing Pet Clinic at 8:00, it was like, oh my God, this is my
Hell yeah.
chance to let
Yeah.
them know that I am repping them. You know what I mean? I might not be able to make it out to every show, and I feel bad for any show that they play where there's like 6 people there, you know, because I'm not there. But like, this is my chance to be there because I'm already here, you know? And that was the great thing about it for me, is just being able to like, I didn't get to, like, this year was a little different. I didn't get to experience it as thoroughly as I wanted to, just because of outside circumstances and stuff. But I got to like, there's another local band called Slugs that full on, like, love that band, like hope to see them do great things in the future. And it was crazy to like actually be able to show up for them, you know, because I'm already here. So it's like, it's kind of like Bonnaroo. You know, I went to Bonnaroo 4 years in a row, and it was like, okay, I went and saw bands that I've only ever listened to once, but knew like, okay, I dig their stuff. And I might walk away from that performance like, oh, like, damn, okay, I need to check them out more. You know what I mean? Like one performance, for example, was Courtney Barnett. Yeah. Like, I wasn't a big Courtney Barnett fan, and then I went and had the opportunity to see her live because of the festival format. It was just like nothing else to do at that point. You know, I was kind of indifferent walking into it, but walked out of there, you know, I need to give this more time, you know, of that. So I hope that anyone who came to see us at said festival, you know, out of the curiosity, or may have heard of our name through the grapevine and they were already there for their friend's band, maybe they came and saw us. I hope they walked away saying, I need to check this band out more. And I don't, you know, it's a little soon for the actual results, but you know,
I think like your perception of it is maybe less about, I think that a festival like this, what we see in it is more of just like a representation of how Pittsburgh as a whole treats local music. There's a lot of people who like don't care about it. Almost.
Totally.
So like all of the, like you're saying, like it is like a gathering of all the local bands, and we're like all supporting one another. And like, if I talk to someone in the music scene about Deutschtown, they're like, yeah, like this is all the people I'm stoked to see. And then I talk to someone who's like not involved in the local music scene, and they like don't know who is playing or don't care to like learn about who's playing, and they're just kind of there to hang out, like you're saying. And so I think it's more of just kind of like a a bummer realization that a large group of people from Pittsburgh like don't give the local music scene a chance, but
Yeah, and maybe
like they want the Clarks.
Yeah,
there's more than the Clarks.
It sucks that I mean, I think that the infrastructure is there. Because I mean, okay, you're getting a large chunk of people that don't care, that we assume don't have much knowledge or more interest in gaining knowledge about the local music scene.
Mhm.
But you're getting all of them over here.
Yeah.
And they're surrounded by some of, really, really great bands all over the place. But it bums me out whenever you get them here and you get the bands here, but then you fuck up putting them just in these weird spots. It doesn't work. And then that goes back to like my point of just like how important I think it is to actually focus on curating stages and lineups that make sense. I'm all for diversity, but it has to be diversity that makes sense. It cannot, and I say this all the time, I apologize, but it cannot be ranch dressing on top of ice cream. Like, you know what I mean? Those are both great things, but they have their place on the plate. If North Side is the metaphorical plate, and the festival is all the things happening or food, we got to put things together so it makes sense, and the venues are equipped so the bands could play, loud bands could play where loud stuff is okay. And then quiet, because I'm sure there was probably some situations where there's like a really loud place. They had someone real quiet playing there, and whoever went to go see them couldn't even hear them because people were all over the place. And then in your situation where
vice versa,
you're too loud for the space, and it's like those two performers should have been flipped.
Totally.
And I'm curious about like if there's even anybody on like the committee for like a festival like Deutschtown that is even aware or cares about these things.
Yeah.
As far as I know, like all the people that I know that work with the festival work really hard at getting things together. But when it comes to actual execution of lineups, I don't think they know enough about the bands that are coming in to curate the stages properly. And that's a bummer.
I think as the festival grows, I think the more it'll seem less, because like for the past 3 years, it's felt like a raffle. As a performer, you could either make out real good or you can make out real bad.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
I honestly would not be surprised if that was the case, like in one way or another. Like, like we throw all the bands into an Excel sheet, cut them up, throw them in a hat, and just do that. That's what it seems like.
And I think like for something like the local festivals we have going around here, we can just like cross our fingers and hope that eventually the structure will, because I mean, you have to also think about like, I mean, not to keep bringing up Bonnaroo, but like Bonnaroo started as a family reunion that just eventually became a huge party that eventually was like, okay, we have to get our shit together and like get the proper permits. And then it grew from there. So I'm hoping that like, as these local music festivals grow, they start, which I'm sure is already on the back of their mind.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Like they're
I'm going to fully. I'll say it here on record and in front of you two. I'm gonna reach out and send a very nice email, and I'm gonna say like, hey, I've been talking with people. There's a lot of concerns. I live in the North Side. I'd be happy to help if you want it.
Yeah,
and I can almost guarantee you, I'm gonna get a middle finger, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think if they were
looking at you,
if they were to delve into like that, actually would probably be the next step for it to grow.
Because that's the thing. It's like I don't want to, because like the guests that I had on before, we talked a bit about Deutschtown. I feel like it's going to be coming up by the time this episode comes out. Well, it'll be the end of the month. It might be a little bit old news by then, but like I don't want anybody that's a part of the festival that might be hearing this to feel like I'm attacking them or anybody's attacking them. It's just like, no, like regardless of, whether or not they thought the festival was a success, there's definitely some things that could be addressed to make it work better in the next year. And
exactly.
I think that, again, communication, it's really important. And I think instead of just pretending that there aren't problems, let's just address those problems, because it's all stuff that could be easily fixed.
Yeah. I think probably just, I think the next step would probably be, I mean, the 400 band thing was a lot. I mean, that you You sit back and you realize, wow, I mean, that could have been, honestly, I mean, without like huge headliners, that probably in all actuality was like the main draw of the festival, was how ambitious it was.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's probably why people came out for the most part.
I said that at the beginning of this, this conversation that we were having, where I think that they do all of this stuff just to have big numbers on a flyer.
Yeah.
But I don't think it does anybody a favor.
Yeah.
And they make the festival so big and things so unpredictable that they can't even do something as simple as like create a map that's reliable. Like if they were able to distribute a map or make an app on the phone where it's like, these are all the venues where bands are playing and this is a reliable schedule.
Yeah.
That would help a lot, but they can't even do that because venues back out last minute, bands cancel. It's like, I know there was a lot of bands that dropped off yesterday, it seemed. And like, I get it, but it's like, you need reliable bands, you need reliable venues, and like all of those things could really be cut out if you weren't trying so hard to make it these huge numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and promoters per stage,
this is the 7th year they've done this event. They know, I mean, they have a track record of bands that have probably played multiple years, and they have a track record of venues that have participated. That's your reliable core. I would stick with that and just go from there.
Yeah.
I have other ideas as well, but we don't want to get crazy. I talked about it in last week's episode, which was earlier today. So anyways.
Yeah, I think one thing I think and this is kind of like my thing with Pittsburgh. For, you know, a lot of people look at Pittsburgh and they think, you know, maybe the grass is greener in like Nashville or like Athens, Georgia, or New York City. And I think of Pittsburgh more as an open frontier for legitimate things to come out of the roots of it all. Because you look at like a city, like these random record labels that like have a break. You know what I mean? You look at like was it Des Moines? And it's like Saddle Creek Records came out of the middle of the Middle West. You know what I mean? And I think the main thing that Pittsburgh lacks right now, and this is what I think like everyone should support, is beyond our DIY scene, beyond like our bar scene and everything, and actually like support things like your podcast, you know, and things like the Gray Estates, you know what I mean? Like blogs like that, or things like what Brett
shout outs, they are coming on the show soon.
Oh, really?
Sick.
Yeah. They've, I mean, we, you know, cause you look at like, you know, why do we perceive like Brooklyn as a great place to play? You know what I mean? Or Philly, because I mean, okay, you look at Brooklyn, it's like, okay, Pitchfork's based out of there. There's always this pretense that you go in there that you're playing for ears that could get you to a better point than where you're at. And if Pittsburgh right now is, we need to support like a record label, you know what I mean? To have the next big band, you know what I mean? We need to support a blog to be the next Pitchfork. We need like these legitimate cornerstones of like our scene to make our city seem like a, you know, we have the great art here. And I think this even kind of goes back to like our talk about like presentation and stuff. And if our city can present itself as like a legitimate like art hub, the way that like Athens, Georgia is, or, you know, New York City, or, you know, things like that. I think we have to support the things that aren't just music. You know, we have to support the things that are trying to garner us legitimacy as like the art hub, you know, of Pennsylvania, you know. And I think with something like the music festivals that happen around here, I think like we were saying, like just having like certain, like just have like promoters per venue curate the stage, you know what I mean? And make the festival something that like per stage is like set up to be like solid as is, you know?
It's a great point. Yeah, because like before I started playing the String Machine, which was like 3 years ago, like I was telling you earlier, like I knew Red Hands because my brother's best friends with Tyler. And then I saw you guys play with them, and I saw like Amplifiers and maybe Young Fox. And I think those were like the 4 local bands I could name.
Yeah.
But like the DIY scene that we became a part of, I had no idea it existed. And like, this is a really great point of just like the art is there. And it's really great, but we're not really doing a great job of promoting people that, tell people about it. Cause like also going to Point Park, I have a bunch of friends that have been going there for 3 or 4 years that I just became friends with. And I like take them to a local show and they're like, what? And like,
Yeah,
they were like, Pittsburgh was really bland before, but now I'm seeing these things. And, we do have the art and,
Yeah, we just need to like support the labels that'll make, that'll put us, and not just labels. I mean, I guess it goes far beyond that too, you know, support not just the artists, but the people who are trying to give like the artist a spotlight, you know, and make it better for bands that are coming out of town. You know, everyone, I hear the talk all the time about like why bands sometimes skip Pittsburgh, you know what I mean? But if you don't have like a good core, you know, as not just art, but like the things that also surround art, you know what I mean? Like cornerstones of that, you know, I think it's important for us to like support like things like Misra Records and Crafted Sounds. And
it's it's so silly because, you know, we in the past 5 years, Pittsburgh's become this really big foodie town. And everybody's into, you know, going to all the new restaurants or the new breweries and all of that thing. And like, you know, it's fine, you know, whatever. I get it. But there's like, okay, cool. It's like now we have this focus on local business to some extent. And like, oh, cool. We heard about this cool new restaurant. So yeah, we'll go there over going to Olive Garden or something like that. But like, oh, there's a cool new local band. Like that hasn't, like local art hasn't met the same sort of hasn't been greeted with open arms in the way that all of these breweries and other places have been opened up have. But I think a lot of that too just has to do with hype, because a few people start going and a few writers, and like, you know, you have your city paper and things like that are all notoriously terrible at promoting local music. They talk about them and then people go out. But then when it comes to, you know, promoting local music, a lot of those outlets they don't do the best job. I guess they do what they can with what they got. But I think a lot of the time it's just the people that work for those papers just don't even know about. They're like your friends at Point Park. They don't even they don't scratch underneath the surface. You know what I mean? It's just like what's bubbling at the top. You know what I mean? For a while, it was just like the Pittsburgh City paper in particular couldn't ever talk about anything hip hop related without dropping Wiz Khalifa or Mac Miller in the thing. I mean, even for the longest time in the best of awards, I mean, there was, you know, you have best rock band, best metal band, best folk band, best, you know, like all of those things. And then it was best artist to most likely be the next Mac Miller or something like that. Like it wasn't best hip hop. I was like, what does that even fucking mean? It was so weird. And like, why would you only do that for the hip hop category?
Right.
It wasn't like there was like best Italian restaurant to be the next Olive Garden or whatever. Not saying that like Mac Miller was the Olive Garden of Pittsburgh rap. That sounds really disrespectful. It was just, just a thing that came to mind. You know what I mean? It was just really strange. So I've always had like a really awkward relationship with a lot of the local publication. Like, I mean, they've written both positive and negative things about work that I've done. I mean, they've pushed us. I have friends that still work at the papers, but I think that, you know, particularly right now, there's somebody working at the city paper that's really focused on metal, which is really interesting. And it's cool that like they want to be a part of that. And I think that's what we need, rather than complain like, oh, fuck the paper. It's just the fact that the people that are there just don't know. And the people that do know should try to aspire to get in there and help get the word out.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, you know? And I don't even know how to, the viewership is a big thing too. Like our friends are from Montclair, New Jersey, and they're like right near New York. You know what I mean? They're like little hop, skip, and jump. They might as well be a Brooklyn-based band, you know, for what they do. And I think, like for example, they play one show. Like, you know, you get asked by like the production companies around here to open for a band, you open for that band and it's like, oh, that's really cool. You know what I mean? You get to play with some of your favorite bands like through like Mr. Smalls Presents or Opus One and stuff. And that's all really cool. But you have to also consider like when they do the same thing in Brooklyn, it's not just like the average listener there, they open for some band that's like getting to be a really big indie band, and they found themselves playing for someone who writes for MTV, and MTV wrote a feature about them.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think about like, okay, what is the difference between what I'm doing and what they're doing? The difference is not their art, because the art around there is probably, the same as anywhere else would be,
Sure.
It's more about like the cornerstones that will elevate them to new levels, And I think like what you said about the city paper and like trying to stem out and actually be a part of the culture that they write about is really important, And
I try to empathize with the fact that I think that a lot of people that have worked for the city paper or the Pittsburgh Current or whatever, I think I do want to go on record and say that I think the Pittsburgh Current's doing a much better job at covering underground music than the city paper ever has.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that there's a lot of work to be done, but there's still a lot of time left on this planet. And as long as those writers are passionate about what they're doing, they'll eventually turn over those stones, if they keep digging. But it's like, those writers only have so much time to do things. They got deadlines, they got lives outside, it's like, you can't expect everyone to know everything.
Yeah,
it's like the equivalent of like me telling you about some movie and then you telling me you've never seen that movie. And I'm like, what? You've never seen that movie? It's like, nah, I only have time to watch so much. Or you've never listened to that album.
Yeah.
It's like, I've listened to plenty of albums. I just haven't happened to hear that one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it is when you need to think about that one, like attacking writers or a paper or something like, why haven't you talked about this part of the scene? And it's like, well, because I was talking about all this other stuff and we'll get there. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. And, that's the thing. Like if you like, I'm trying to think of like an example, like when I heard about things on like, for example, like I think it's important to support these things around here, because I remember like 2 years ago thinking how cool it would be to like, or how cool bands were and how much more I was like excited to go see them or more inclined to go see them because they were on Gray Estates or because they were on City Paper.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think if we support that kind of thing, you know what I mean? Kind of that hype kind of machine that goes on, if we support it, I think that's how we lift bands up on out of here, And that's the weird thing about Pittsburgh. It kind of seems to be like sometimes seems to be like a glass dome. You know what I mean? Like in the Simpsons movie. You know what I mean? Like I think a perfect example was like the Clarks. You know what I mean? Like that band deserved, I don't know. I'm not like saying I'm a huge Clarks fan, but that band
first concert.
That band had the sound to be like world renowned. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like Goo Goo Dolls, like kind of band. And for some reason, I think they kind of got trapped in Pittsburgh, right? And like it's like there's so many great artists that I'd hate to see that happen to. And it's like, well, how can we make Pittsburgh, like instead of forcing artists to be like, okay, fuck Pittsburgh, I'm going to Nashville, how do we make Pittsburgh like more radiant, And
I think one thing would be, curating successful events that get people engaged with the music.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think one festival that does a pretty good job at it is like the arts festival. Like, you know what I mean? Like the good old arts festival at the Point, you know what I mean? Like I think they do a great job at bringing in like a good headliner, and then they curate I remember it was like they always try to find a local opener to play with that band that kind of is at least similar.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then that almost gives that local opener like some more legitimacy because they opened for whoever was there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Wilco, didn't they come here like 4 years in a row for the arts festival? And like any band that opened for them has that like on their side, that, they, and I think maybe that's also one thing. A lot of these, I mean, local music is great, and I think curating a whole festival around local music is great. But I think it'd also be cool to get some like pretty gnarly like headliners in town. You know what I mean? Like find the funding to like bring a headliner so people are kind of into it for the music as well.
Yeah, I just think curating the talent in general, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah,
just
it's probably the next
having
step,
it just make more sense that way. Whenever people get to the festival and they're trying to figure out where they're gonna go, if they like heavier stuff, they find the place that has loud music, then they can hang out in that part of the area. I know that a big part of the festival is to encourage walking around, but all you end up doing is just get people walking around in the heat and they get exhausted and go home.
Yeah. And I mean, I like, it's kind of weird, what do you do? I mean, I think it's like, it kind of all comes around to it just being like a gamble. You know what I mean? I've had moments myself where it was like, I'm just going to drink beer. You know what I mean? I'm going to this festival so I can just hang out and like have a good time.
Totally.
Regardless if that means I'm paying attention to the acts or not, but like the gamble of it is, are you going to have that person at the right mind state to like absorb what you're doing in a way that like makes them like engaged and like, I want to check this band out, and I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's generally how it goes, right?
All we can do is just keep on trying.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. Exactly.
Yeah. Hit the lows and just keep bouncing back. You know?
And with that being said, I think we should probably wrap this one up.
Yeah.
We went a little over, but that's okay. We were chatting. We were talking about things. Didn't want to cut it,
There's always
just let it roll. Right? Just let it roll. Just let it roll. It's all good. So, Death of the Neon, August 2nd.
4 days
release
from this video
Is it
being
4
on the
days?
internet.
Yeah.
It's July, what day is the internet?
31.
July 29th, yes. It is July 29th. According to the future. It is July 29th. You could check out their album, Death of the Neon, as I said, August 2nd. You could catch them at their release show, August 3rd, at the Mr. Roboto Project. And you can watch the music video right now for Eight-Legged Dog. What was the blog that premiered it?
Impose Magazine. Yeah.
Watch it on Impose Magazine or just go on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah. YouTube. You can look it up,
But it would help Impose if you went over to their website and checked it out, I imagine, right?
Based on our conversation we just had.
Yeah, it's like it's like the quid pro quo of of the whole shebang,
And that's all, folks. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. David, Dylan, String Machine, thanks for coming on. Thanks for chatting about, music and your band and festivals and getting a little curmudgeon-y for a moment or two there on my part. I apologize, but hey, you know what? It's all because I'm just passionate.
Yeah, yes. And we love it. Yeah, we love it.
I care. I'm trying my best.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be here 3 times a week if I didn't. And I'll be back again next time. Speaking of, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sykes. Start the Beat 2019. Whoop, woo.
Yes,
thanks for listening. Yeah. And we are done with 4% battery on the camera. Look at that.
Oh, man. I wasn't even considering that.
I'd be keeping an eye on it. I knew we were good. And